Hey, today we are going to talk about some of the strategies for doing maths in your head. And by those we refer to things we call mental strategies. So instead of going for a calculator or grabbing a piece of paper and a pen and using some kind of an algorithm, what are some of the things you can do to work numbers and sums and multiplications out in your head? There's plenty of them. We're going to look at 4, and the first one is probably one of my favorites. I do this one a lot. It's called petitioning. Now, if you petition something off, you break it up into separate pieces, and that's what we do with our numbers. We simply split them into easy pieces, or pieces that are easier to use. So take this addition, 185 plus 12. Well, 185 and 12, I can split those from the tens off. I can split that into 180 and 10 and 5 and 2. So I'm petitioning it off into pieces that are easier to use. My 185 I've split into 180 and 5 here. But it's easy for me to add 180 to 10, and it's easy for me to add 5 to 7. I get 190 and 7, bring them back together, and I get my answer of 197. So there's a petitioning strategy where I split it up into easier to use pieces, then brought it all back together. I could use this also for multiplication. 32 times 12. Now I'm going to take that 12 and split it into times 10 and times 2, because 32 times 10 I can do quite easily in my head, because I simply add a 0 to the end of the 32 to get 320. The 32 times 2, I double 32 to get 64, bring them back together at the end, and I can see that I've got 384. So there's an example of petitioning. Second one we can use is what we call compensating. Now, compensating is where if you've got a number maybe that's close to a 10 or close to 100, you can bump it up to that, work with it because it's easier, and then undo it at the end. Let's look at an example. 54 plus 19. Now, 19 is almost 20, so I'm going to bump that up by 1 to make it 54 plus 20, because I can do that easily in my head. I know that's 74. Now, the 1 I added, I need to take back out at the end. So from 74, I take 1 away, and I get back to 73. Compensating we can also use in multiplication. 16 times 9. Now 9 is nearly 10, so let's make that 16 times 10, because I can do that once again easily by adding a 0 to the end of the 16. So 16 times 10 is 160, but I had 9 lots of 16 is what I'm after. I did 10, so I've got to take 1 lot of 16 away from my answer to get me back to 144. Well done. We're nearly there. Bridging to 10. Now we could spend a whole lot of time on this, but basically all it is you're splitting numbers to easily get to the next 10. Let's look at an example. 47 plus 8. Well, if I want to get from 47 and get to the nearest 10, which is 50, I can take 3, okay, because from 47 to 50 I know is 3, so I'm going to take 3 out of the 8. Okay, so where I had 8, I'm going to split it into 3 and 5, because 47 plus 3 is the 50, that gets me to the nearest 10, and then add the 5 to get my 55. I could also do bridging for subtraction. That's a little bit different, but it works. 52, I'm going to come back. My answer is going to come down from 52. So let's work backwards to the nearest 10. Well, the nearest 10 from 52 is 50. To get there, I take 2 away, so I'm going to also take 2 away from the 15. So now my answer would be the same thing as 50 minus 13. Let's get back to the next 10. So if I take 10 away from the 50, that gets me down to 40. So I have to take 10 away from the 13 as well. And then finally, 40 take away 3 gets me 37. So that's kind of like bridging in reverse, but hey, it still works. The last one, quickly, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but doubling. For some reason, in your head, sometimes for many people, it seems easier to just double things. So we can take numbers, and if they're close to being doubles, we can adjust them. So here's what I mean. 75 plus 78. Now, I can see that 75 is close to 78. So if I split my 78 into a 75 and a 3, I can double 75 to get 150 and then just add the remaining 3 to get my 153. So that's a doubling strategy. So look, there are other mental strategies. If you've got some that work for you, great. But there's just 4 that we can practice and use to do calculations in your head. Well done.